So normally this isn't a problem, but a little bit of a warning. The blasters in question today have a pattern on them which could be considered lewd. So, I mean, I'll keep the context away from those of you that don't understand it, but let's just, a little bit of a warning. We're still going to try to keep it PG. A few moons ago, I made an offhanded comment in my tag bag video on the Swarmfire. Please hydro dip it in anime girls for me. And ever since then, I've been on the hunt. I've actually been learning how to do hydro dipping. I've been trying to find a supplier for custom hydro dipping film for quite some time. And then I met Valor Lionheart, who is a regular in the Fuzzy Walrus Industries Discord. There's a link down below if you want to try to get in on that. It's a pretty poppin' Discord server, that's for sure. There's a lot of people in there. Anyways, he decided to go out of his way to make me something absolutely awesome. And before you say anything, yes, he does do commissions. So if you're interested in something like this or something on the level of this, well, he's the person you're going to want to contact. And what might I be talking about? Well, Valor Lionheart made me two blasters, a pair, which I'm not even going to say the name because it's a little bit lewd. However, they happen to look like this. And yes, these may be my new favorite things ever. Just probably. Yes, eagle-eyed dear long-term viewer, all one of you, I finally have a blaster covered in anime girls, and they look to be pretty excited and happy, although they might be running a cold, maybe a slight fever. Some of them are even, they kind of look like they were taking a drink out of like their vanilla chai frappuccino from Starbucks and sneezed while they were drinking off of it, and it got kind of everywhere. It's a little bit of an issue, but they're still really cute, and I really appreciate Valor choosing this to cover these blasters with, because now I have a brand new weapon to take to every single war I ever go to. And we'll start with the smaller of the two. This is, of course, a NERF Speed Swarm, or the upgraded version that was re-released called the NERF Powerbelle in the Rebelle line. And typically these blasters aren't well loved. While they are fully automatic in a pistol-like configuration with a front-loading turret, which makes them pretty darn good to have as a sidearm, the biggest issue with them is that they don't really have the best fire rate, which is kind of what these things are known for. It is an automatic Springer, so you kind of want to have either a good power or good rate of fire. This has kind of a little bit of both, but neither at the same time. They're really cool. And this one happens to fire pretty darn hard, because I believe the springs in both of them have been doubled up. And I'm pretty happy with how these things perform, because they shoot around 100 FPS, which is awesome. Obviously, they have a pretty short barrel, and that could probably be better if they had a longer barrel. I may look into brassing them or putting some kind of petchy in there, but they're really good. I will run these just how they are, because they still fire reasonably fast and they still hit reasonably hard. So, can't really complain too much about that at all. Plus, it happens to look like this. This is a thing. Now, answering the obvious question, how exactly did this pattern get on this blaster? Well, Valor Lionheart didn't use hydro dipping film. You might have thought they would have, and I've been looking for custom hydro dipping film for quite some time and haven't really found a serviceable way to do that yet. This is actually printed out from a computer inkjet printer onto water slide transfer decals, which if you build any kind of Gundam models like Master Grades or anything like that, you're probably aware of what these are. They're basically a decal that when you get it wet, it dissolves the glue, and then you transfer it onto your piece, and when it dries, it glues to the piece. The difference is he did it on this massive, massive scale, because this entire blaster is covered in it, except for the plates where, you know, it's not, with the black grip and the gunmetal-like accents everywhere else. But it's really freaking cool. Like, seriously. This is awesome, and I'm really, really jealous he figured that out. But of course, that's not the only blaster, because now we have the very beautiful and much-loved Swarmfire. This one has, some very cute striping on the back of it. I'm a massive fan. And if you thought maybe the Powerbelle was serviceable when it comes to fire rate, this thing I love it. I've never had a modified Swarmfire before. This makes me a fan. And it's basically empty. That is not a lot of fire, and then of course you have to refill it from the front, which is a little laborious on this kind of blaster, because of course it is huge. Top it up, and there's no real easy way to top it up on the fly or anything like that. I don't know, I don't think you can do rear loading slots on something like this, and you could, of course, at this point anyway, because it's already covered in the film, which I wouldn't want to destroy, so I'm out of luck. Fire control is not great on either of these things because, of course, it is a fully automatic Springer blaster, so it's kind of hard to do, like, individual shots, but if you wanted to absolutely Shrek, like, 1 or 2 people, these are really good for that. They're both running off a 3S LiPo, and the LiPo doesn't really do a whole lot. I could run off a 2S, of course, but the difference between the 2S LiPo and a 3S LiPo in this blaster, because it is a Springer, is just the rate of fire. So, without burning up the motors, and of course these won't be firing for all that long, I just use a 3S LiPo, which is stored in the battery trays on both of them, and it is awesome. The Swarmfire does have an on and off switch, but it doesn't do anything. There's nothing hooked up to it. Maybe in the future, if I want to do something funny, I might be able to fit something that works off this, like a pump or something like that, if I wanted to build off this concept, but honestly, it's already perfect. I don't have to do anything. All I have to do is throw these in a box and bring them to a war and then shame somebody with them. And of course, this does answer an interesting question. Do these blasters have a field-worthy purpose in modern-day nerfing? And they kind of do and kind of don't. This is not a bad little sidearm. It's fully automatic, it fires decently fast, it's relatively compact, and it doesn't have a magazine, so you don't have to worry about having extra magazines for a sidearm. If you're already using a primary with magazines in it, then why would you use a sidearm that has magazines when you're probably only going to be using that sidearm when you're out of ammo for your primary anyway? This can be used basically the same way, although it does have better ammo compatibility. You can fire short darts out of this if you want to wedge them in there. It works perfectly fine, although, again, it's just a short dart wedged in there, doesn't do anything super crazy. And, I mean, front loader, which is easier to top up and use, and it's really easy for you to clear corners and stuff with if you need to in like HVZ or something like that. And it's got a big, huge loop right there that you can sling it off your side or something like that if you wish. So there is a lot of reason to use something like this if you're doing like an HVZ setup or something like that where FPS isn't really, you know, a huge issue. Now, if you're doing competitive nerfing, they fire reasonably well and you can do good with them and they have a good amount of power. However, they're not gonna beat out really anything. They're performing about as good as like a stock light command, a little bit better, but light command, these things, that could be a very determining factor. I mean, these required work to get up to that point, and light command just buy it open and it works pretty much the same way. However, the Swarmfire does have kind of a bonus, because, of course, the Swarmfire, you can take the internals out of it and mount it to pretty much anything like Bobololo has. And then you got a very high rate of fire, and if you don't have this big, huge shell on the end of it, well, you can easily do that keyring swap, which I kind of wish I would be able to do to this thing, but you have to cut a big hole in the side of it, and I don't really feel like doing that. I may explore it in the future if there's a way I can do it prettily, but right now, I don't really see a way of doing that. And again, topping these things up on the fly is possible, but it's still a little difficult. It's a lot harder to reload these than your typical revolver. I'm not a huge fan of magazines. I don't like having to, between rounds, load up magazines and stuff like that. I'd rather, you know, spray down 2 or 3 people and then top up the blaster and be on my way. Magazines, you know, you have 4 or 5 of them, you spray ammo like none other, then you run out of ammo, and then between rounds you're spending your time picking up darts, and I kind of don't like that at all. But there's a reason people use magazines, because, well, it's an instant reload. You empty 18 darts, you take out the magazine, you put a new one in, there's 18 more darts. This one, put in a couple, and if somebody turns a corner, you shoot the couple and hope you get them with that. There are things you can do. I mean, it's kind of, they're not good or worse. I think the only issue is that, like, one of those blasters, you know, like a Strife that's properly modified, can get up to like 170 FPS with a fully modified kit. And this will never do that. Again, it kind of depends on your game type. So I guess the real question is it worth upgrading your Swarmfire and your Powerbelle? And in this case, it doesn't really matter because it's been modified, or your Speed Swarm. And the answer is, I would say, yeah, if you have a use for a sidearm, totally. This is not bad at all. I happen to really like the Powerbelle Speed Swarm kind of thing when it's as a secondary, because while it is a little fat and looks kind of like a ray gun, works pretty darn good in my opinion. The Swarmfire, on the other hand, it's way better as like an undermounted blaster or like a shoulder-mounted blaster or something like that. Using it as a dedicated primary, not exactly great. I love the grip, I love the stock, I love just about everything about the Swarmfire, except for the performance. It does fire really fast, but in a blaster this big, it really needs something else on it. If I were to perfect this blaster, I would put some kind of pump on it, some kind of like something that can hit really long range so I can poke at people, and then if they happen to get close to me or I happen to get close to them, I have a secondary option. As a primary, just in its kind of modded stock form, it's really not doing a whole lot for me, and that's kind of a shame, but it does have a purpose, and usually it's being undermounted to something else. That is to say that I'm extremely happy to have these blasters, and I thank Valor profusely for sending these off to me, because I'm not worthy at all. But he's fulfilled a dream of mine, and that would make him the wish granter. So thank you very much, Valor. I do very much appreciate it, and of course you can find cards, links at the end of the video, stuff to go check out his channel. He's done some pretty cool stuff, and I have a feeling he's going to continue to do some more pretty cool stuff. I'm Walcom, thank you very much for watching this video, and of course, I hope to see you in an entirely different one.